Family First is bringing you conservative conversations, commentary and content. And now you can access these important discussions in the format that you prefer. Watch, read, listen. You can watch our content on our website, familyfirst.nz. Simply click on the Watch tab and you'll see all our various programs that you can view. You can also watch these across our social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, TikTok, Threads and Blue Sky. Everywhere. If you'd prefer to listen while you go about your daily activities or are travelling in a vehicle, then click on the Listen tab and the latest content is there for you to listen to. You can also find us on Spotify under Family First NZ. And if you prefer to read our commentary, then click on the Read tab. We're increasing the frequency of our written commentary, focusing on the latest research and analysing the current news events which are relevant to families and society. We provide the insight and context which you won't get from the mainstream media. We're also now adding the full scripts of Family Matters and McBlog under the video link in our website, and also written summaries on our live stream shows so that you can read and digest the material at your own pace. Consume our conservative conversations in the way that best suits you. Watch, read, listen. Go to familyfirst.nz and join the conversation.
Good morning everyone, welcome to Solid Ground with me, Simon O'Connor. Lovely to have you along, where we talk the issues of the day, the political, the moral, the social, the ethical, just the downright interesting, from a strong position of faith and unapologetically from a conservative viewpoint. So welcome along on all the various platforms that we broadcast across. But know that if you are on the Family First Facebook or YouTube channels, then your comments can come live to me here in the studio. And as regular viewers know, I love to get your comments. I love as people tell me, as they're doing already, saying good morning and letting me know where they're from, both here in New Zealand and around the world. But as I say, because it's a live show, if there's anything you want to ask, if there's some issue that's on your mind, put it into the chat and, I'll do my best to, well, not only see it, but respond to it. And of course, your comments on the stories as we go through at the moment. But as I say, welcome along. And I will just very quickly go through, because I can see comments coming through already from Lynette. Good morning to you. We've got Food Dogs Trucking. It's a jolly good morning. Darren's noting, yes, it is quite a cool day. I may or may not have a heater on in the Treehouse studio as we speak at the moment. Mike, good morning to you. Excuse me. To ABC 1961, good morning to you. Is it happy Tuesday? Jackie, good morning. Samuel, lovely to have you along as well. Good morning. Nigel, lovely to have you here. A blessed morning to all from Muddy Waters. Pugs for Life. So you were on last night on Straight Talk. You threw Bob with your title, but, pugs are great. And to Fourth Adam, good morning. And I think Pugs for Life's asking about the India FTA, so I might get to that in a moment, so do remind me. My mind may be a little bit messed up today after a little bit of drama, and good morning, Bernice. After a little bit of drama here at home last night, we had a knock at our door just after 10 p.m. Our neighbours had ordered some food via Uber, and the very young man who brought his car up the driveway, unfortunately on the way down, got stuck on the stairs. So fortunately, everyone was relatively calm, but Rachel and I went out to see what we could do to help. But yes, our driveway was completely blocked up. A little car, a Mazda, stuck on the stairs that run along our driveway. All I can report is that I was not able to do anything about it, even though I have a very good car. It doesn't have a tow bar or a winch. But long and short, I think he got some mates out, and when I went out earlier this morning around 6 a.m, it was all done and dusted. Driveway is free. But yes, lost a little bit of sleep. Yes, our driveway. Well, most people won't know where we live. Few might, but our driveway. In fact, just about every house we've owned has had a dramatic driveway in some regard. But anyway, poor young fella. And just quickly to NZ Knitter, good morning. Lovely to have you along. So look, guys, as always, a huge amount to discuss here. I'm going to start with something which I found quizzical. I hope you can see that on your screen. So this is how much the price of diesel has increased, and you'll see New Zealand's number 2. Look, not really much comment from me on this one, other than I just don't quite understand why New Zealand is so much higher than a whole lot of other groups. I suspect distance is playing a part of it. As I say, I just found this an interesting graph. An economist that I follow sends me briefs every day on a whole array of topics, both economic and geopolitical. This one just caught my eye, but I mean, if you're filling up your cars at the moment, you know just how painful it is. So anyway, massive amounts of increase there for New Zealand as compared even to Australia. Some of the countries makes sense if they're an oil producer like a South Korea or the US and so forth. You imagine they're not going to be hit so hard. But the other quick comment is New Zealand does need to think about its own strategic independence. I don't think we've learned anything from COVID, where we had to source everything from overseas, and I still don't think we've learned or learning anything from this current crisis. And if I was to be slightly broader than just the current diesel prices, if we think what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz is bad, you wait and see what happens if China does what it promises to do, which is attack Taiwan. Now, that would be devastatingly bad. It would be wrong. That's just putting it mildly. But boy, we're going to find life is a lot harder. And I wrote a Substack a couple of weeks ago around this, which is saying that just like with Iran, the situation with the Islamic Republic at the moment, New Zealand should have been better prepared. Both the government and things like corporate boards should be planning for these disruptions. What's happening currently in the Middle East was well foreshadowed. You'd have to be pretty much blind with fingers in your ear in a cave, to quote from The Simpsons, to not know there was something going to blow up in the Middle East. And while we hope nothing happens here in the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, dictators like Xi have made it really clear that they intend to. And I've also said before, many a time, when dictators say they're going to do something, believe them. And so, what is New Zealand doing to prepare if something does go wrong? Even if it's not deliberate, it could just be a misunderstanding in the likes of the South China Sea. But as I say, diesel prices, amongst others, just appallingly bad. In what I think is good news, you possibly didn't see this. It possibly went over the radar, or under the radar even. Stephen Franks is a lawyer in Wellington. In fact, he's a former ACT MP. I don't know Stephen well, but I know him. But long and short, I think it was last year, he sent a letter to various doctors or medical practices that basically do chemicalization of children, so puberty blockers. He sent them a letter on behalf of a client called Inflection Point. So Inflection Point is, very much a centre-right leaning, I'd say conservative group with a real concern, particularly around what's happening to children, what they, people often refer to as gender-affirming care, which is basically, as we say, chemicalizing children with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and then ultimately mutilating them with surgery. So Inflection Point asked Stephen here as a lawyer to draft a letter and to send a letter effectively warning these medical practitioners of the risks of using puberty blockers, that in fact they could be at legal risk in the future, because they'd basically doing experimental, experiments on children. So he did. And at the time, some people complained. None of the doctors, interestingly enough, activists, lawyers, and just activists in general. And initially, from a disciplinary hearing, he was found to be guilty of whatever, I suppose, legal crimes within the Law Commission, the Law Fraternity, for daring to write a legal letter to these doctors. And the good news is he fought the case, because Stephen is pugnacious in this way. He fights well, and he's won. It's been completely overturned, and as he's pointed out, absolutely stupid that he was called out for this in the first place. Part of the reason he was, what's the right word, got into trouble is, according to the tribunal that reviewed his letters, like, lawyers shouldn't be putting this sort of pressure on people by, in this case, writing a letter warning them of legal risk. I mean, how absurd and stupid can you get? That's the raison d'etre. It's the bread and butter of lawyers, is to put pressure on the other side. It doesn't matter if it's criminal law or family law, you name it. The whole point of lawyers is to be writing letters between each other and to their clients, and putting pressure on the other side. So, I mean, just an absurd decision. But why I wanted to share it is, not only is it a win, a lawyer's allowed to actually be a lawyer, but it shows you again the ideological capture which is creeping through New Zealand, particularly around the trans agenda, and particularly when it comes to the targeting of children. Even here in the legal profession, there were people quite prepared to silence, in this case, Stephen Franks. Not because he's Stephen Franks, not because in one way or another he wrote a letter. It's because he was writing into a space that the ideologues want no comment on. And so there's a long history of this, in effect, violence. Now, I want to be really clear. Taking someone to a tribunal is not the same as beating up Posey Parker, as the trans activists did in Albert Park, but I'm using it in the broadest sense. They'll do anything they can, these ideologues, particularly in this gender space, to silence critics, be it the physical violence, through to abuse, through to capturing the professional associations. And as Food Dogs Trucking is noting, there's DEI in all professions. Yeah, there is. And it's getting broader and broader now. Very, very difficult. But we just got to keep pushing back against this stupidity. And speaking about that, keep an eye on in Australia. Oh, I've pressed the wrong button, but I am still here somewhere. Keep an eye on this. This is Sall Grover. She's in Australia. She's got her court case this coming up this Friday, or rather the decision of her court case. So as you might remember, Sall is the woman on the right with the sunglasses, and on the left is a man who thinks he's a woman and insisted in forcing his way onto her app called Giggle, which is only meant to be for women. And because of the stupidity of Australian law, thanks to Julia Gillard, the Sex Discrimination Act in Australia doesn't actually deal with sex anymore, it deals with gender. So Sall, unfortunately, has been losing case after case in Australia because she's seen as discriminating against the gender identity of this guy, whose name is Tickle. You couldn't make up a funnier set of names. Sall is fighting for reality, and she's fighting for women. In fact, I've done an interview with her on RCR before, and I need to get her back on, actually, into the Family Matters podcast. She's fighting for women, to say, actually, women's spaces are for women. Women need to have the ability to just be women and not have men force their way in. And I think that's one of the dynamics you need to understand, if you don't already. I mean, I'm probably preaching to the converted here. The issue with the trans lobbyists is, by and large, it is men forcing their way in to women's spaces, by and large. And they are aggressive, they're domineering, and as some have put it, it's quite totalitarian. They will abuse you, they will haul you to court, they will spin their pseudoscience at you, they will do all and everything. It's a very abusive dynamic, and it needs to be called out. And it needs to be called out by more people than just simply Sall Grover. But anyway, there's something to keep an eye on. So Friday, 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So that'll be about 4 o'clock here in New Zealand. I'll be honest, I'm not optimistic. Not because Sall's case isn't significant or common sense. Women are women. Adult females. It's straightforward. It couldn't be more straightforward. But we're dealing with the law. And unfortunately, the way the law in Australia is drafted gives far more weight to men who think they're women than actual women. It is quite extraordinary. And I think, too, as I was talking earlier, about various professions. So Stephen Franks' case, I think, unfortunately, we're seeing the courts becoming more and more compromised. You see it here in New Zealand on, again, topics like this, climate, the treaty, anything that's seen as particularly controversial, the courts seem to lose their perspective relatively swiftly, which is unfortunate, I have to say. And Muddy Waters is noting that often people like this one, I've always forgotten his first name, let's call it Tickle, is autogynophiles. There we go, there's your word for today, autogynophiles, which is a technical term for men who, if you will, get excited by thinking that they're women. And NZ Knitters got it right. It's effing biology and reality. It is. And it isn't an extraordinary situation. I just don't fully understand, and I've done a number of podcasts with people in this space, and I'm often asking them the same question. How is it that people are so blind to this? It's extraordinary, and it's such a lie. It's such a fabrication. It's also that explains why there has to be this almost totalitarian agenda forcing anyone who dares to put their head above the parapet. Is it Gillian Spencer in Australia? She's I think a psychologist or a psychiatrist, long and short, has spoken out against what's happening here, particularly around children. The same with another doctor called Andrew Amos, I think his name is. They're speaking out as medical professionals, and they are being hauled over the coals, destroyed. Gillian was literally dragged out of a doctor's conference last week for holding up a sign. I mean, it's just appalling. But this is the state that we live in at the moment. Speaking of states, I probably touched on this a little bit last week, but what a excellent decision it has been of the government to scrap the Broadcasting Standards Authority. Absolutely useless, to use a word from NZ Knitters' comment earlier. It's effing useless. It's just, I know I use the word ideologically captured, or the phrase ideologically captured often, but it's just another one of our groups that is. It's come up with some good decisions. It hauled TV1 over the coals last week for its extraordinarily biased reporting on Donald Trump, where they basically, cut footage and his words to sort a terribly prejudiced article. So that was good. But we know of so many other decisions that they make, which is basically just, hiding bad journalism. So good that it's gone. I know some people are now worried around, where do we complain to? You can still complain straight to the broadcasters. They tell us, the mainstream media, that they're professional and that they have their ethics. Well, let's call them. Call them up on it. Bombard RNZ and Newsroom and TVNZ and all the others with complaints when they put out terribly biased reporting. But I think we also have to ask, if they are truly an ethical profession, why are editors and sub-editors and others not pulling in these journalists when they put out false reports? When a reporter, decides to write a piece on, cannabis or euthanasia, and it's so one-sided, where is the editors who are supposedly meant to do their job to say, actually, reporter X, go back and interview the other side, or so on and so forth. They don't do that. And so, that calls into question whether the profession is actually ethical anymore. And as I keep saying, it's why the likes of Family First, RCR, the platform, exists now, as we actually try to put, it's not even alternative perspectives. Actually, I suppose it is in many ways. Alternative perspectives, but giving you news that you don't see. NZ Knitters noted, when I wrote to the BSA on their biased and inaccurate coverage of the Posey Parker situation, I got a long-winded reply using legal jargon, putting me in their place. Yeah, I think that's just a good example of it. A lot of people just get dismissed. Again, if you don't fit the ideology of these groups, so as we were talking earlier, the Legal Tribunal with Stephen Franks around trans issues, the BSA around issues to do with, again, climate, treaty, they just won't deal with you. Ethical issues, certainly not. If you want to be getting, somewhat neutral coverage around issues like abortion, euthanasia, or at least coverage that has both sides, not a chance. Not a chance. And speaking of journalists, of course, we've had I was going to say extraordinary, but somewhat predictable situation where Mikey Sherman's had to leave her role at TVNZ. We talked quite a bit about this last week. It's really been the big discussion. We touched on it on Straight Talk last night as well. Look, I speculate she jumped before she was pushed. Both sides had lawyered up. I suspect it was just a matter of a big settlement to then step away. But look, her position at one level become untenable, although I still feel it's sad at one level and not really needed for her to have had to be fired or to leave. I think her comments, as alleged to Lloyd Burr, are absolutely terrible. I think the behaviour that she showed towards Stuart Smith, so he's the National Party whip, totally inappropriate. Some of her reporting, again, very biased, not good at all. But I don't think people should be cancelled or sacked for those things alone. I think that's just, it's not the proportionate response from my side. In the same way that, Sports Australia and others cancelled Israel Folau, and there's a host of other examples. I think people are allowed to make mistakes. I mean, if you make a huge mistake, a scandalous mistake, that's different. I don't think this reached those levels. And again, I'd much prefer to see that we actually can accept apologies, we can move on, rather than sort of this, I don't know, what is it? It's not whipped up, she caused it herself along with others, but a contrived situation. So I think unfortunate that she had to go. I sort of understand why, but as I say, I think it is better. That actually we don't embrace the cancel culture that is happening here. What has struck me, though, is how this has instantly turned into supposedly a race issue now and a sex issue. So Irini Kaipara, so I was going to say of the Māori Party, but we're not sure if she's in the Māori Party or not anymore. That party is exploding and ripping itself apart, literally as we speak. But predictably, this Māori Party MP and also a former reporter has come out saying this was a terrible, as it says here, deeply upsetting treatment of Mikey Sherman, and it's a scrutiny on her. She was scrutinised because she's a Māori and a woman. I just want to say here, it's a total load of rubbish, but this is typical intersectionality, isn't it, folks? That everything gets reduced to who the person is rather than what they did. Okay, so you might disagree with me on the whole question of whether Mikey should have lost her job or not, but her losing her job, the scrutiny she received, has nothing to do with her being a Māori woman. It had everything to do with her conduct and her behaviour. Whether it was drunken or not, warranted or not, chasing someone like Stuart Smith down the corridors is not appropriate. As Fourth Adams noting, her journalism was not balanced. I mean, sometimes it was. I thought some of occasionally when I watched TV1 it was fine. Other times, just terrible, absolutely terrible. And by the way, she's not the only one. I mean, gosh, you pick up Newsroom or Radio New Zealand on just about any issue, and there's just no balance. But again, the idea that she was sacked because she's a Māori woman or faced scrutiny is just total and absolute rubbish. And the other one that's coming through in the last 24 hours is Tory Whanau. So she's the former mayor of Wellington, is now, for some reason, at the Waitangi Tribunal, which just seems a tribunal of grievance on just all and every issue. Honestly, it's another organisation. I don't know why it exists, but that's a whole topic for another day. But she's now saying that it was racism, sexism, and I'll use the word misogyny that drove her out of the country. Again, absolute rubbish. You notice again with intersectionality, there is no reflection on self. Everyone else is to blame. Tori seems to forget how appallingly bad she ran the council. Look, I'm a ratepayer down there. I follow these things. And some of you I know are from Wellington. She was an appalling mayor. Incompetent, a drunkard with a multitude of problems in her own life. Now, I hope she's getting help for that. But those were the reasons that she left. She was doing an appalling job. And for people like myself and others, it wasn't that she was a Māori or a woman or young or a Green voter. She was just, as others are saying here, useless. And so, look, it's just, And the other, I think Bob touched on it yesterday, of course, Jacinda Ardern hasn't blamed soap. Well, actually, no, hold on, I will back up the court. So she's now off to Australia, ironically. Jacinda often puts the blame again. It was just too much pressure. We all know, if you look at the polls, Labor was tanking. Her stats were tanking. She left the country broken, more divided than ever, an economy that is screwed, and so on. And yet, all three always blame others. Jacinda blames you and me and everyone else in the country for its faults. Tory, whānau, everyone else is to blame, not herself. And the same with Mikey Sherman. It's absolutely ridiculous. And actually, I might just jump. I can't remember if I showed this last week, and I'm going to link it in to what I've just been saying about Mikey and Tory and Jacinda. It also applies to many in the mainstream media who do everything but blame themselves for things going wrong. So this is the latest survey from Reporters Without Borders, and New Zealand has slipped in the rankings again from 16 to 22. Now, out of 160-something countries, being 22 ain't bad, but it's still slipping. But what caught me was this tweet from I don't know if he's both the owner and the editor of Newsroom, but he's saying that the fall is because of tough economic conditions, failures around the Information Act, and harassment of journalists online is why it's fallen. I just think he misses the boat. Now, by the way, he's welcome to have his opinion. I think he just misses the boat. He is right, it is tough economic conditions. I'm not sure why that affects people's trust. I suppose the argument is that they're not doing as competent enough job, or they can't get the same reach that they used to. I can sort of partly understand that, but I don't think a lack of money instantly makes trust in media go down. Failures around the Information Act. Look, there's always been issues with the OIA, but again, I think that's just making excuses. And the harassment of journalists. Look, if they can't stand the heat of the engine room, then don't be in there. And as we found with Mikey Sherman, they're out busily harassing people as well. And I've shared with you in the past, what I could describe as harassment of myself as an MP, simply because I was pro-life. So I think it's a little bit rich. But why I put up that tweet around the Reporters Without Borders report is, notice there's no reflection on the nature of the journalists and the reporters themselves, of the absolute rubbish that they put out at times. Their opinions masquerading as news that doesn't report both sides, news that is obsessed usually with progressive issues, and also reporting in a way that is just blatantly biased. I mean, you've seen it. I haven't got time for it today, but we saw, and again, Bob would have touched on this as we did last night too on Straight Talk. All the reporting about the rise of the far right when you get groups like Reform in the UK or One Nation in Australia, groups that believe in the family, that it's good to have a national sense of identity, have concerns around wholesale immigration. These are now far right, and they scream this, the Herald, as loud as they can, and Stuff and others. And yet when you see what's happening with the Māori Party, you see what's happening with the Greens. I don't know if some of you caught the Q&A interview on Sunday with a new Green candidate called Tania Waikato. Very activist, particularly on the treaty and Māori issues, which again she's welcome to be. But this is really far left. But you never get that reporting again from the media. So they've got no reflection on themselves. And you know what? By and large, trust in media is declining because of the media, because of reporting, because of what is and is not happening. So look, good comment, I think, from Fourth Adam, the far centre. Simply Green is well known in the media is very biased, a personal front. Yeah, I don't think we should be paying taxpayer dollars to them. So look, until the media works out that they're actually the problem and they've eroded trust through their behaviours, we're not going to see much change. That's sadly the case. Guys, we're coming to the end. Just a reminder, the latest podcast I've got is with Katie Faust. I would say it's not to be missed. Katie is an amazing activist for families and the importance of mums and dads. And, a key thing for her is that we need to put children first. So, the idea of like surrogacy, to buy children. And she pointed out some horrific cases in America in particular, where just children are being effectively bought and sold. So we talk about that. We talk about the importance of mums and dads. We talk about also what she talks about, the rise of called divorce porn. On RCR, I've just done an interview with Rawiri McKinney. He talks about actually the Northern Māori Wars. If you want a little bit of a history lesson, jump on to that. Bob, of course, is always very busy doing his Substack. So jump over to Substack and check that out. I've got to write a new one, but this was my latest as well. Political playback, of course, on Thursday night. Look, there's just no shortage, as I keep saying, of content here at Family First. So just jump over to our website, familyfirst.nz, check it all out. But in the meantime, you have a wonderful day. I can see the clouds as I peer out here, out of my little treehouse studio, that the clouds are parting, a little bit of blue sky there. I'm actually off to have a discussion with some people around adoptions, of all things. So I'm not adopting a child myself, just talking about the nature of adoptions in New Zealand. So guys, have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you this coming Thursday. Of course, Bob is back tomorrow. But just as I say, have a wonderful Tuesday.